Hey, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications because the stories we talk about here, they're real, raw, and sometimes painfully close to home. And today, we have a story called "She Cheated for Attention, so I filed for divorce and erased her from my life." If you have your own story and you want it shared here, you can send it to my email. You'll find it in the description below. Now let's get into this one. I didn't find out my wife was cheating because of lipstick on a collar or a hotel receipt. I found out because she said the word attention like it was harmless. And that word destroyed everything. When I met Lena, she had this energy about her. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just warm. She had long dark hair that she always tucked behind her ear when she was nervous, and these soft brown eyes that made you feel like she was actually listening when you talked. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. I remember she laughed at one of my jokes, not the polite kind of laugh. A real one. Head slightly tilted back, hand over her chest. That kind of laugh makes you feel chosen. Back then, I was building my career. Long hours. Big goals. I wasn't rich, but I was focused. Driven. And she told me she admired that. Looking back, admiration can slowly turn into resentment when someone feels invisible. But I didn't see that coming. The first 2 years of our marriage were solid. We bought a small house. Nothing fancy. Grey walls, wooden floors, a backyard we kept promising to renovate. We talked about kids one day. We cooked together on Sundays. We fell asleep watching shows we barely followed. It felt safe. And here's the first psychological insight I want to share with you: safety feels amazing until one partner starts craving excitement more than stability. Around year 3, she started changing. Subtle at first. She began spending more time on her phone. Smiling at it. Turning it face down when I walked into the room. When I asked who she was texting, she'd say, "Just friends." Just friends. Have you ever noticed how vague answers are often a red flag? When someone gives you less detail than necessary, it's usually because detail creates accountability. But I ignored it. Why? Because I trusted her. And because I didn't want to be that insecure husband. She started posting more on social media too. Selfies. Gym photos. Quotes about knowing your worth. Random guys started commenting with fire emojis and heart eyes. I remember one night I said casually, "Some of these guys are a bit much." She rolled her eyes. "It's just attention." Relax. Just attention. At the time, I told myself she deserved compliments. Maybe I wasn't vocal enough. Maybe I should have been more expressive. That's how betrayal begins sometimes, not with the act, but with you blaming yourself for someone else's boundaries. Then came the late nights. Girls' night. Work drinks. Networking event. I didn't want to be controlling. I didn't check her location. I didn't go through her phone. I believed that trust meant freedom. But trust without awareness becomes blindness. One evening, she came home smelling different. Not like her perfume. Something heavier. Masculine. I noticed it when she hugged me. I pulled back slightly and she looked at me too quickly. You know that look? That split-second calculation. What? She asked. Nothing, I said. Inside, though, something shifted. Your body knows before your mind accepts it. Over the next few weeks, the emotional distance grew. She stopped initiating intimacy. She seemed distracted even when we were together. I'd talk about my day, and her responses were delayed, like she was elsewhere mentally. I started overanalyzing everything. Was I boring? Too focused on work? Not romantic enough? Here's something important: when someone cheats for attention, it often has less to do with what they're lacking at home and more to do with what they lack internally. External validation becomes addictive. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and she wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs on the couch, phone glowing in the dark. She flinched when she saw me. "Couldn't sleep," she said quickly. "At 2 a.m., smiling at your phone." I didn't argue. I just nodded and went back upstairs. But that was the night I knew. The confirmation came a week later. Not from snooping, from carelessness. She left her phone in the kitchen while she was showering. It lit up. A message preview. I missed last night already. My chest tightened. I stood there staring at the screen like it was a bomb. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. That single sentence told me everything. When she came out of the shower, hair wet, wrapped in a towel, I was sitting at the table. "We need to talk." She froze. Not confused. Not curious. Frozen. That's how I knew she knew. I asked calmly, "Who is he?" Her face went pale. Then defensive. "What are you talking about?" I repeated the message word for word. Silence. And then, tears. But here's something I've learned: tears after exposure are rarely about remorse. They're about consequences. She sat down and said the line I'll never forget. It didn't mean anything. I just needed attention. Needed attention. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because my brain couldn't process the absurdity. "You had my attention," I said quietly. And she shook her head. "Not like that. You're always working. You don't notice me anymore." There it was. Blame shifting. Instead of saying, "I made a choice," she said, "You made me feel." Psychologically, that's avoidance of responsibility. When someone can't tolerate guilt, they convert it into justification. I asked, "Did you sleep with him?" Long pause. "Yes." It felt like someone dropped a weight inside my chest. "How many times? Where? Did he know she was married?" Details poured out in fragments. It started with Instagram messages. Compliments. Then coffee. Then a hotel. She described it as feeling desired. Desired. So I asked her something I still think about. Was my love not enough? She didn't answer. Because the truth would have been ugly. The truth was, my steady love couldn't compete with the thrill of novelty. That night, I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I didn't beg. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and left. Here's where I want to pause and ask you something. If the person you built your life with told you they betrayed you for something as shallow as attention, would you try to fix it? Or would you walk away? I drove around for hours. My mind replaying every moment of the past year. The late nights. The distance. The gaslighting. And that's when clarity hit me. She didn't just cheat physically. She emotionally exited the marriage long before I knew. Affairs don't start in hotel rooms. They start in private conversations that cross boundaries. The next morning, she texted me non-stop. "I'm sorry. It was a mistake. We can fix this." It was only physical. Only physical. As if betrayal has a size category. I went back home 2 days later. Not to reconcile. To assess. She looked small sitting on the couch. Eye swollen. Hair messy. For a second, I saw the woman I married. But then I remembered something crucial: love without respect is self-destruction. She kept saying it was about attention. That she felt invisible. That he made her feel alive. I asked her, "Did you ever tell me you felt invisible?" She said, "I hinted." Hinted. Healthy adults communicate. They don't hint their way into affairs. Over the next week, I spoke to a lawyer. Quietly. She thought we were working through it. I was already emotionally detaching. And detachment is powerful. When someone expects you to fight, and you go silent instead, it shakes them. When I handed her the divorce papers, she stared at me like I'd betrayed her. "You're not even going to try?" she asked. Try. That word again. Here's my personal commentary: trying only works when both people value the relationship equally. If someone risks your marriage for validation from a stranger, they've already calculated that the risk was worth it. I told her calmly, "You didn't cheat because I ignored you. You cheated because you liked the attention more than you respected our vows." She cried harder. But something in me was calm. Solid. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I just said, "I deserve someone who doesn't need strangers to feel worthy." The divorce process was surprisingly smooth. No kids. Assets split cleanly. But the real closure came after. I blocked her on everything. Phone. Social media. Email. Not out of pettiness. Out of preservation. No contact isn't revenge. It's recovery. She tried reaching out through mutual friends. Apparently she was devastated. Apparently she didn't think I'd actually leave. And that right there is another psychological truth: some people cheat because they believe you'll tolerate it. They mistake kindness for weakness. Months passed. I focused on myself. Gym. Therapy. Work. Friends I'd neglected. And here's something unexpected: the silence was healing. No drama. No monitoring. No suspicion. Just peace. About 6 months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. She saw me and her eyes filled instantly. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated. Then nodded. We stood near the frozen food aisle like strangers with history. She said the affair didn't last. He lost interest once the secrecy was gone. Of course he did. Affairs thrive on illusion, not responsibility. She admitted she confused attention with love. That she realized too late what she lost. And here's the twist. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. And that scared her more than anything. She asked if there was any chance. I told her gently, "The moment you needed another man to validate you, something broke in me. And I can't rebuild that." She cried. But I walked away. Not dramatically. Just calmly. Because here's the lesson I want you to take from this story. Attention is cheap. Commitment is rare. If someone risks your loyalty for temporary validation, they're not confused, they're showing you their priorities. I'm not saying marriages can't survive infidelity. Some do. With deep work, therapy, accountability. But reconciliation requires genuine remorse, not regret over consequences. And she regretted losing me. Not betraying me. There's a difference. Today, I'm in a healthier relationship. One built on communication, not hints. On reassurance, not social media validation. And I've learned something about myself too. I used to think love meant endurance. Now I know it also means boundaries. So let me ask you. Have you ever stayed in a situation longer than you should have because you hoped the person would change? And if someone said they cheated just for attention, would that make it better or worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Because these stories aren't just entertainment. They're reflections. Warnings. Lessons. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fighting for love. It's walking away from disrespect. And that's exactly what I did. I erased her from my life. Not because I didn't love her. But because I finally loved myself more.